Picture this, you're juggling emails, replying to text messages, on a phone call, and trying to prep for a meeting all at the same time. Sounds familiar, right? Well, it does for me. For many of us, multitasking feels less like a choice and more like a survival skill to manage an ever-growing workload, or just to get ahead and stand out. But here's something very few people talk about. It isn't just about cramming in as much as possible. It's about the ripple effect it has on your brain, your body, and your productivity. Multitasking can work for you, but only if you know how to manage it strategically. Today, we're diving into some fascinating research on stress and multitasking, exploring how it impacts your focus, resilience, and your long-term performance. By the end of this episode, you'll have 5 actionable strategies that you can use as tools for unlocking your focus, increasing your productivity, and building your edge. Welcome to the 10% Edge podcast, where we explore the stories, the science, and the actionable strategies to scale small shifts into big wins. Have you ever wondered how some professionals thrive under pressure while others get stuck in the grind, or worse, burn out? I've been there. As a senior manager, I've not only guided talented individuals through these challenges, but I've faced them head-on myself. Through hard-won lessons, deep research, and real-world testing, you'll find me here, building the 10% Edge, a community where ambitious achievers like you can make meaningful progress without sacrificing what matters most. This podcast delivers practical, research-based strategies you can put to work for you right now. If you're ready to level up your impact without sacrificing what matters most, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome to the 10% Edge. I'm your host, Carl Kurt, and today's episode is inspired by research from Linda Becker and her team. Links and details are in the show notes. Their study reveals how our stress systems, and we'll unpack these systems later in the episode, react to multitasking, and they offer us some suggestions on how to stay focused under pressure and how to maximize our efficiency and, importantly, our recovery. In this episode, we'll explore 3 key areas. We'll talk about what these stress systems are. We'll cover what multitasking really does to your stress response. And of course, we'll discuss practical strategies that you can put to work for you right away. Let's start with the basics. Becker's study defines multitasking as managing multiple tasks simultaneously, like spinning plates or juggling multiple balls all at the same time. In contrast, single tasking is, as it sounds, performing a single focused task, but importantly, without interruption and without the need to manage any other tasks at the same time. The researchers also discuss something called dual tasking, which refers to switching between single tasks sequentially, and we'll unpack that later on. The study's aim was to explore how multitasking activates key stress systems in the body, and whether it increases physiological stress compared to single tasking. Becker's team examined 3 major stress systems, and I'm going to try and keep this simple so we can maintain our momentum moving toward those 5 action strategies. The first of the 3 stress systems is the sympathetic nervous system. That's your fight or flight mode, the part of you that's always ready for action. The second is the parasympathetic nervous system, and you can think of that as your rest and digest mode. It's absolutely crucial for recovery and maintaining a level of calm. And the third, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. This system regulates cortisol, and that's the stress hormone responsible for your body's long-term stress response. Here's the quick takeaway. Becker's research demonstrates that multitasking significantly increased the sympathetic nervous system activity, essentially putting your body in a prolonged high alert state, while also suppressing the parasympathetic nervous system activity, which makes it harder to recover and return to some level of a normalized or relaxed state. You can think about it like driving a combustion car at full throttle without ever releasing the gas pedal and without ever refilling the fuel, oil, or water. So why did I choose this research to bring to the show now? Well, for me, it's because there's a strong paradox to multitasking that is very rarely discussed. And from my experience, multitasking is often seen to be a badge of honor. In fact, pretty early in my management career, an executive I looked up to pulled me aside and almost proudly told me that in our line of work, we'll always be juggling many balls, too many balls, all at once. And the trick was to know which ones are glass and not to drop those. My question at the time was, well, how do we know which ones are glass? But what I didn't realize back then is that knowing which balls are glass isn't just about prioritization. It's also about recognizing when multitasking is counterproductive. What I understand now is that the glass balls are not just tasks. They can also represent our focus or our energy or even our well-being. And as you can imagine, dropping any of those has a far-reaching and potentially very impactful consequence. What I've seen over the years in management and leadership roles is that juggling multiple tasks can give you a sense of accomplishment, even control, kind of like you're conquering the chaos around you. I've heard more people than I can remember brag about it. I've even been one of those people. But under the surface of productivity, I learned later, like many others, that my body and my mind were paying a price. And not just that, my relationships too. Let's dive a little deeper into the research. Becker and her team reviewed 25 studies involving over 1,100 individuals. These individuals took part in experiments to measure stress responses under different task conditions. They compared stress markers like heart rate, cortisol levels, and emotional states during multitasking versus the single tasking scenarios. And the results, well, they were pretty clear. As I mentioned earlier, the multitasking participants showed a significant increase in experiencing that high level or that fight or flight state, and that was paired with a drop in their ability to recover and experience a calm state. So in other words, over time, this prolonged constant state of high alert chipped away at their creativity, their decision-making, and efficiency. But that's not all. While it wasn't explicitly explored in this research, there's mountains of evidence that tells us that this prolonged state of high alert and low recovery is linked to more chronic diseases than we have time to talk about here. But it also impacts other areas of your life, like sleep, like your relationships, and ultimately how long and how well you live. But I want to be clear, this isn't about throwing multitasking out the window or under the bus. It's about understanding how it affects you and your work and learning how to use it wisely, like a tool, one that works for you, not against you. Okay, quick recap. Shifting between emails, phone calls, messages, it might make you feel accomplished in the moment, but beneath the surface, your stress systems are working overtime. They're draining your energy, your mental clarity, and slowing your chances to recover quickly and bounce back. Maybe you've noticed the impact already. Maybe, like it happened for me, it's creeping up on you slowly depleting your reserves, slowly impacting your relationships until one day something breaks. Either way, this research inspires us to take action. Multitasking taxes your body and brain. Use it wisely, or it will work against you. Okay, let's get practical. How can you unlock your focus, manage multitasking stress, and still stay productive? Here are 5 proven strategies that you can put to work for you today. And don't worry about pulling over or reaching for a pen and paper. I've created a printable cheat sheet that summarizes all 5 strategies. Links are in the show notes, or you can head over to 10percentedge.com/episode 001. Okay, let's dive in. Strategy 1, prioritizing single tasking. This means performing a single focused task, but with a commitment on doing that task without interruption and without the need to manage any other tasks at the same time. Consider setting aside protected blocks of time for high-impact tasks. By that I mean tasks that move the needle. You can think about 10 to 25 minutes to start off with at a stretch, similar to the Pomodoro technique. An example could be blocking out time in your calendar to draft a presentation without glancing at emails or notifications. Planning a response plan to an industrial or organizational risk with your door closed and a do not disturb sign stuck up on it, or diving deep into a budget analysis in one focused session and letting everyone know in your physical space that you need that time to be quiet and uninterrupted, and so on. A comment that comes up regularly in conversation with peers and clients is, "I don't have time to focus on one thing." Well, I'd suggest start small. Even a 10-minute block of uninterrupted work can create amazing results, particularly if it's directed at a high-ticket task, deep work. Quick tip would be use a timer to stay on task. I use a physical timer that I have on my desk. It also acts as a physical cue to remind me to use this strategy when it fits. Several of my colleagues work in open offices, so they can't do that. They use their phones or smartwatches on vibrate or with headsets on. Single tasking creates clarity and momentum, even in a multitasking world. Strategy 2, embracing micro breaks. You're not a machine. Taking breaks isn't slacking, it's recharging. Remember the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the nervous system that's crucial for recovery, calm, and your rest and digest mode. Well, think of micro breaks as a practical way to activate that system, helping your body to shift out of that high alert stage or phase and recharge and bounce back more effectively. What does it look like? Well, it could be as simple as taking a 5-minute break every 90 minutes. That's it. You might step outside for a quick walk, try box breathing. That means inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, and repeat. I do that 4 times. You could stretch your neck, shoulders, legs, etc. while standing up. Now, if you're thinking that breaks feel like wasted time, and I know I used to, it's time to shift your thinking. Think of breaks as productivity boosters. That 5-minute pause can recharge your mental batteries and make you think and problem solve sharper, faster, and more efficiently. A quick tip would be set an alarm to remind yourself to step away and recharge. Micro breaks don't steal time, they restore it. Strategy 3, practice mindful transitions. Multitasking and even dual tasking to a lesser degree contributes to cognitive overload or mental fatigue, or even simpler still, stress. And this is where practicing mindful transitions between tasks helps to relieve that cognitive load or that mental fatigue. It works by allowing your brain a moment to reset, to refocus, and to set your intention for what's next. So essentially what you're doing is using these mini pauses to close the loop on the previous task and to focus your mind onto the next. And the way it might look is jotting down the key outcomes you want before heading into a meeting. Or after a client call, summarize the key action points before moving to the next task. You could transition from work to home by reflecting on 3 things you accomplished today, or 3 things that you're grateful for throughout the day to make sure that when you get home, you're genuinely present. A quick tip would be keep sticky notes handy or a notepad to jot down some quick points to close loops on one task and or to refocus your thoughts onto the next task. Transitions aren't wasted time. They're the bridge to better focus. Strategy 4. And by far my favorite, it's apply fractal gains. Yes, big tasks can feel absolutely overwhelming. Let's break them into smaller milestones, call them microtasks, and importantly, let's celebrate each win along the way. Not only does that make them more manageable, but it also supports how our brains function. Earlier, we covered how multitasking and cognitive overload activates your stress systems. By focusing in on one single micro task at a time, you actively reduce your mental fatigue and keep your parasympathetic nervous system, that's the system responsible for recovery, calm, your rest and digest mode, keeping that system engaged. Celebrating each win reinforces progress. That creates the positive feedback loop, or what I call the motivation flywheel. And that fuels motivation and productivity, leading to increased energy and productivity again, and so on and so on. Simply, fractal gains are about building momentum one small step at a time. So what does that look like in practice? Well, it could be outlining key sections of a report, then drafting one section at a time. Or, as I recently have done myself, developing a very large key document, an operational strategy, by breaking it into phases like research, brainstorming, drafting, etc. Or it might be planning a big event by locking in the date and the venue first, then handling catering and guests and so on. Small wins fuel big results. Break tasks down to build momentum. And strategy 5, adopting dual task compounding. This means pairing a high focus task, this is where you do your deep work, with a low effort recovery activity. The idea is to combine focused work with activities that recharge you, even energize you. And this might look like brainstorming ideas while taking a walk. And you can do that on your own or with a colleague. I've had incredible breakthroughs in walking meetings. I've even been known to dial into a virtual team strategy meeting while walking along the beach. Now, getting sand between your toes isn't exactly for everybody, but you get the drift. You could be reviewing key documents while listening to your favorite music. You could be practicing presentations or key pitches while riding on a stationary bike or shooting hoops at a basketball hoop. The key here is pairing the high-focus task carefully with the activity that enhances the work while energizing you. So a quick tip would be keep a list of low-effort recovery or energizing activities that you enjoy, keeping that list handy so that you can pair it with those high-focused, deep work activities quickly when you can. What I've also done over time is to increase the amount of activities on that list and increase my access to the low-effort energizing activities. So, for example, I set up a treadmill desk where I can walk and review and respond to key documents and emails. The point here is to pick what energizes you. Pair it with those needle-moving, high-focus activities, and it will work for you. Focus and recovery compound results. They amplify your impact. Okay, let's bring it home. Unlocking your focus and getting more done without burning out isn't about working these strategies to perfection. It's about making small, consistent improvements. Whether you're single tasking, taking micro breaks, or practicing mindful transitions, these strategies compound over time and they will bring you significant results. Multitasking might feel productive, but over time, it quietly drains your energy, focus, and resilience. But with these 5 strategies, you have the tools to change that. Okay, here's your challenge for the week. Download the worksheet linked in the show notes. Pick one strategy. Mindful transitions, dual task compounding, fractal gains, whatever it might be. Pick one. Test it for 5 days. Reflect on how it improves your focus and your energy and how it decreases your stress and fatigue. Leave a comment on whatever platform you're using to listen to this episode or reach out to me via LinkedIn. I'd really appreciate hearing how it works for you and if you've come up with any modifications that work better for you. If today's episode resonated, share your thoughts using hashtag 10%Edge on LinkedIn. let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, stay focused, stay resilient, and keep scaling small gains into big wins.